So this young man who was completely lost, he saw the shepherd, and he says, the shepherd probably wouldn't know where the Starbucks is, but this is the only opportunity I have. Let me try it anyways. So he goes to this shepherd and says, hey, I am kind of lost. You may not know where the Starbucks is, but can you please help me with some direction? The shepherd looked at him and said, I don't know what a Starbucks is, but I can definitely tell you the closest shopping area that you can go to. He said, that'd be very great, and then he started giving him directions. Just before the young man was leaving, he looked at that shepherd and he says, hey, if I can tell you how many animals do you have, can you give me one of your goat? The shepherd looked at this young man and said, okay. So the young man went to his Tesla, took his laptop out, put a satellite, started doing hotspot and crunching some numbers. After 45 minutes, he said, do you have an iPhone? The shepherd said, no. So he printed about 48 pages report. And he said, you have 232 animals. The shepherd said, yeah, you're right. I do have 232 animals. Thank you so much. He said, can I have my goat? He said, yeah, go ahead and pick one. So he goes and puts the animal in his Tesla. And just before this young professional is leaving, the shepherd comes to him and says, if I can tell you what your profession is, can I get my animal back? The shepherd looked at him. He said, he doesn't know Starbucks. He doesn't have an iPhone. He can never tell me what do I do for a living. He said, yeah, go ahead. He said, you must be a consultant. And he said, how do you know? He said, 3 simple reasons. 1, you came here uninvited. 2nd, you told me something that I already know. And 3rd, and most important, you know nothing about my business because the animal that you picked up is my dog, not my goat. So, Noreen, thank you for having me here, and I'll try to be as relevant as possible. But I'm going to talk about 2 major things. First, the changing marketplace. Some of this information you already know, and how does this really impact our lives? And then I'm going to talk about diversity and inclusion, and it's not why it's important, but the impact, the problem, the challenges that we are facing, what is the solution, and what are the benefits. And then we're going to have a conversation with Noreen about aligning the next generation and how they are disconnected with us, and how do we solve the huge disconnect that we have. So changing marketplace. 2 things are very, very important today. One is the impact of technology. We are all driven by technology. And second is diversity of people. So let's talk about the impact of technology. We are living in a world which is fairly driven by the devices that we carry. So think about this. The companies today are 460% more likely to fail within 5 years than they were 10 years ago. 460%. That's huge. By next year, 85% of a consumer brand experience will occur without any human interaction. We live in a world which is changing. I have 2 kids that I've put through college. And one of the most painful moments came to me. One day I walked into my son's room, and he was probably 14 years old at that time, and I saw him in front of a laptop and putting a tie on his neck. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm learning how to knot a tie. I said, I have waited all my life to show you this. He said, Dad, that's not a big deal. You can find a lot of videos on YouTube. And as a person of older Gen X, I was literally destroyed with this thinking. You know, parents want to teach their kids how to ride a bike. Today, YouTube is telling them this. So the world is, and they don't even, look at that. They have voice communication going on. So our world is changing. Sorry to say that, but jobs like driver, postal worker, farmers, fishermen, jewelers, broadcaster, translator, referees, and even me as a professor would be gone in the next 10 years. I've been teaching at NYU for the last 14 years at the graduate school. And 3 years ago, I started an asynchronous class, which is online class. And first, I was hesitant about it, but 3 years ago, when I took that class first time, I realized it's really comfortable because every summer I travel, and I could be in French Alps and doing the class. Now, when I looked at the roster, each class has 25 students, and 17 of those 25 students were from New York City, and NYU is in New York. So I asked these students, I said, do you know that I also offer this leadership class face-to-face? And they say, yeah, but we are more comfortable this way. It doesn't matter what we think. It's how our next generation thinks, and that's important. 2 years ago, Fortune magazine did a survey and asked the top 500 CEOs, what keeps you up at night? 73% of the Fortune CEOs are worried about the rapid pace of technology changes. Technology is not going anywhere, but we have to see is this, how does it make an impact? So let me ask you a question. What comes to your mind when I say Apple? Phone? I ask this question everywhere I go, and 99% of the time I hear iPhone, technology, expensive, cool, Tim Cook, Steve Jobs, and rarely someone says Apple the fruit. So think about how can a company, and if someone says that they're dating themselves, right? How can a company that came before I was, after I was born, take over a word, Apple, that existed for fruit for millions of years? How can a company do that? Because the world that we're living in is changing. Do you know what is the most profitable company in the world? In 70s, 80s, and 90s, it used to be oil companies. Now it's Apple. Make about $53 billion profit every year. $53 billion. Think about that. And they don't even have the largest market share of smartphones in this world. They're behind Samsung. But they're so profitable, 50% of their sales comes from one product, and that's iPhone. What is the number one company in customer satisfaction in America? Any guesses? Amazon. Now, what's unique about this company? Anybody uses Amazon? Oh, yeah. Now, you know that Amazon doesn't manufacture anything other than Kindle and iCloud. They are actually matchmakers. They ask you, what do you want? And they match you with this person who has it. And they have a customer satisfaction of 99%. Because they're not in shipping business, they're not in product business, they're in customer business. Every time they have an executive meeting, there is an empty chair in that room, and that chair belongs to the customer. Before making any decision, they ask, what would the customer think of it? And that's why Amazon has taken over our lives. And wait in the next few years, Amazon will be sending you a package when you're not home. And you'll get a message on your phone, hey, we are here. Can we put the package inside your house? And you say, how? They say, well, the drone is outside. And your smartphone will allow you to open the door. The drone will go inside the house, and they say, where do you want me to leave it? You'll say, why don't you go upstairs in my bedroom? And they say, okay. The drone will go and show you and say, hey, by the way, your faucet is leaking. Would you like me to fix it? And you say, I'm not home. Don't worry about it. We're going to be watching it over, and you can also watch us on live camera, but I'll get the plumber for you. Amazon is literally taking over our lives. And that's why this company is number one in customer satisfaction. And 50% of the product that we buy from Amazon, we don't even like them. The charger was not good. But Amazon, I love Amazon. That's amazing. And what are the most valuable brands in the world? It used to be Coca-Cola about 4 or 5 years ago, and Apple and Google have knocked them out. These are all the companies that have recently come. Has anybody ever used any of these products? Guess what? One product has replaced all of them. That's why this is the most profitable company in the world. And there are two things that we cannot leave our home without: phone and our wallet. Which one of this is going to survive? And if you are making wallets, you better start making phone cases, because you'll be out of business very soon. So when you look at the impact of technology, when I was in college, I used to buy my books from Blockbuster. In 1994 came a company called Amazon. When Amazon came, there was another bookstore called, what was the name? Famous bookstore. Yeah, Barnes and Nobles, right? And Borders, and so what happens is that they did not want to change, and they gave their online order to Amazon. On their best year, Barnes and Noble did about $5.6 billion in sales. 5.6 in the best year ever. Last year, Amazon reported $233 billion in sales. So how are you going to compare? And now we have been replaced by new words. Uber, Tesla, WeWork. Do you know these companies? Are they valuable? Yeah, 36 billion, 76 billion. You know what's common between these three companies? Since their inception, they have not made a single penny of profit in any year. Tesla is not profitable. Uber is not profitable. And WeWork is not profitable. Yet they are valued so high. Because your next generation loves them. They are in love with these companies. For them, the big iconic name like Kodak doesn't mean anything. This is the impact of technology, that these companies, they only exist in this space. WeWork, if you think about it, the company's posting losses, the value is going up. So this is the world that we're living in. So after technology, the second is the impact of diversity. Now, diversity has many versions, but we are living in a very unique environment. United States is the third largest country in the world after China and India. In 2040, we are supposed to be 400 million people. Today, we are 327 million people. What's the difference between China, India, and US? In China, everyone is Chinese. In India, almost everyone is Indian. In China, they don't call it Chinese food. They call it food because that's all they have. Here, we call it Chinese food, Vietnamese food, because we are a very diverse country. If you look at the Europe growth is flat. But US is growing in population. And there are three major factors that's having an impact on US population growth. Number one, people are living longer. Number two, families are having more children. And number three, we are having immigration and multicultural forces. This country used to be a melting pot where everybody came and melted in and lived happily. Now this country has shifted from a melting pot to a salad bowl. People are keeping their own identity, but they are very excited to be a part of this fabric. So how do you really function? What are some of the challenges that happens? Every third person in this country is either Hispanic, Black, or Asian. And if you look at the younger generation, the college kids, 42% of them are multicultural. How many of you have somebody in your extended family who's 100 years or older? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5. 5 people in this 50-plus audience. Do you know the child that's born today, every third child will live to age 100? Every third person. So today we retire at 65, then you'll be 35 years. Gosh, we're going to have so many divorces after that. Women now own 40% of America privately owned businesses and hold half of the total wealth in a household. And I know Mark Zoller in my household, it's 100%, right? So we still ignore women as a client. We still don't think that they are the decision maker. Mark has visited me at NYU. Today, if you look at the graduate classes that I'm teaching, almost 70 to 75% of the students are women. What does that mean? I tell my boys, I tell everyone, all young men, get ready, you will be working for a woman. And it'll be a better place. But you need to really be mindset ready for that. Because they are the one who are going to graduate school. They are the one who are going to have better jobs. Millennials are the largest living generation. There are more millennials than baby boomers and Gen X in this country. 92 million millennials. And millennials are people born between 1980 and 2000. And 75% of them prefer to work from home or another place. That's who they are, right? And there are nearly 1.1 million international students come to US every year. Those of you who are with the school and colleges, we love international students. Why? Because they don't ask for financial aid. They pay money. They pay extra. They buy all the jerseys of college and everything. They have money. So that's really a great opportunity for us. LGBTQ consumers now prefer to buy from companies who are LGBTQ certified. Now, you could look at this as a nice information to have, but this is an information that's really going to have a huge impact on your business and how we operate. And if you look at an overview, half of the population is women with $7 trillion buying power. The millennials are $2.5 trillion. Hispanic American are 55. There are more Hispanic Americans in this country than the entire population of Canada. Black population is about 45 million, Asian Americans 19 million, and 15 million LGBTQ. And look at their buying power. It's not the only critical mass in size, but look at the buying power. These are the people who really Amazons of the world love. And the other thing is, in 2004, there were 4 states in U.S. where there were more white deaths than birth. In 2016, 26 states. So white population is shrinking in this country. We are becoming a multicultural society. If you look at the 10 largest U.S. cities, from Boston to all the way, California, Los Angeles, all these 10 largest U.S. cities, Caucasian population is a minority today. So if you look at your next consumer, it's probably a multicultural millennial woman. That's your consumer. And if your branding, advertising, approach, admission policy is not geared towards that, you're missing a huge opportunity. When I was in college, I used to live in Chinatown. There used to be one Chinatown in Manhattan, in New York. Can anyone guess how many Chinatowns do we have in New York alone? 8. 8 Chinatowns in New York alone. And if your marketing, your branding, your campaigns do not include them, then you're missing a huge opportunity. So let's talk about diversity and inclusion. This is 2019, and we are still trying to make a business case. Somebody asked me that, how do we know this works? And I said the day that we don't have conferences about diversity and inclusion, that is the day that we'll find out that this is working. But even today, we are talking about diversity and inclusion. So let's understand what is diversity and inclusion means and how it impacts. So diversity is our unique differences. If you're tall, you did not work to be tall. If you're short, you did not work to be short. If you have an ethnic background, you did not choose your ethnic background. It is who you are. Diversity is about diversity of people, diversity of organization, diversity of entity, and diversity of thought also. If you have a diverse opinion, that's important. Inclusion, on the other hand, is how do you value that? We will not have a challenge with diversity. Even if you don't do anything, you're going to get more women and more multicultural people. The problem that you're going to have, they're not going to stick around with you if you don't include them. If you don't build a conducive environment at a workplace or at your sports ground, at your colleges, at your universities, they will not stick there. If you have a company and you're trying to hire people and you require everybody to come at 8 a.m. to make phone calls and everybody has to wear a white shirt, this is not a conducive environment for a soccer mom who has to drop her kids to school. You have to understand the world is changing because there are many people like them who really can be a huge value for your organization, but if you don't include them and you don't value their inclusion, they're not going to connect with you. So it's important that we understand. And how do we include? Not just by saying it. Our action should speak louder than words. Our decision making is important. When you're interviewing someone, and if it worries you that this person that I'm interviewing is pregnant and she's going to go on maternity leave, then you're really missing the opportunity. Let that person decide how he or she can contribute. The number one best place to work, hotspot a company, is a company that has no vacation policy, that has no policy to come to work. As long as you get your work done, that's what it matters. And that's the company number one place to work in America today. They don't have vacation policy. They say, well, as long as you do your work. Let people decide and your behavior. It's very important. We all have a single lens that we use. Inclusion is really understanding and valuing how people feel, how we use aggression about people unintentionally, and our attitude. And it's okay if we have a different attitude about something, but as long as we value that, as long as we understand that, not only because it can get you in legal trouble, and Marcy's sitting here and she's a subject matter expert and she'll talk about that, but it's important as a strong business case. How many times people who are sitting in this room, you felt uncomfortable about the remarks made to you? Many times. And sometimes you don't voice it out, but you decide otherwise with your behavior by leaving that company. I have never seen anyone leaving a company say, I am doing so well, I'm so valued, I'm so respected, I got to leave this company. Money is not the biggest motivator today. When someone is joining your institution, and they're not impressed with your building, they're not impressed with, what a great yard you have. They're thinking about, how would I be valued on this campus? Do I feel that I've been treated fairly? Diversity is what is, who we are, what do we have, and inclusion is that how someone values what we have. And it is important for you. Look at every person as a unique person. Be a good listener and don't make assumptions about someone. When a woman walks in and says, oh, I'm really impressed with your knowledge about sports, you have no idea that how you make someone feel. And there could be small remarks that can really change people's attitude about you. It's important that we understand. So what are some of the challenges that when I walk around and I talk to people, I see that one of the biggest challenges, the diversity is not a challenge. Like I said earlier, you're going to get it. The inclusion is the problem. Is everyone in your team feeling that they have been treated fairly? That talks about the equity, right? What is the difference between equity and equality? Equality means that you give a same platform to everyone. Equity is that you give a fair chance to everyone. So if I give you an example, if you have an entrance exam, and that entrance exam is in English, and you give the same exam to everybody, and there is someone who only speaks Mandarin, you have given equal opportunity. Is that enough for that person? No, because that person does not speak or understand English. Equity would be when that exam is translated into Mandarin, so that person has a fair chance to compete with you on the same dimension. It's all about getting out of comfort zone. We are very comfortable wherever we are. You were sitting here this morning. We all went out for break. How many of you came to the same seat that you were sitting in? All of you. If somebody else sat on that seat, you say, hey, this is my seat. Well, I don't see your name in it. No, I was sitting here before. We become comfortable. That's how we are. And the older we get, the more difficult it is for us to change. But you understand that this is not all about being comfortable. We were not comfortable switching to cell phones. Who would have thought that I will drive looking at a cell phone and find a navigation? But we made changes because this was important. Managing biases. Bias is not necessarily a bad thing. We all have biases, right? We have biases about a sports team. We have biases about people. That's okay, as long as we are not really putting someone at a disadvantage. Right? How we feel about people, it's our internal thing. How we make them feel, it's an external behavior that can make people uncomfortable. And understand your next generation look at diversity very differently than we do. I remember when I used to take my son for soccer practice, and he said, Dad, can you drop me to John's house? I said, which John? He said, my friend John. I said, oh, the Japanese kid. He said, Dad, you're racist. I'm in diversity, and my son called me racist. I said, why did you call me racist? He said, I don't have any Japanese friend, Dad. I said, the one who lives by your school? He said, yeah. I said, oh, I thought his parents are Japanese. He said, first of all, he's not Japanese, and I don't know where his parents are from. But why do you judge people by their race and ethnicity? I learned something from my son. I said, yeah, I came from the old school where we call Chinese, Chinese, Japanese, Japanese, black, black, Hispanic. But And not that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we should not identify, because that kid is an American kid. His parents may have come from Japan, but me being old school, that was my thought process. We don't see diversity as necessary. It's a nice thing to do, just like environment. Oh, yeah, I really care about environment. But it's not making a huge impact on my business case. Today, your paycheck, your livelihood, your sustainability depends on this. If you're a manager or a business leader, you're at a competitive disadvantage if you don't really manage and understand this. And lastly, people say, why should I change? This is how I have been all these years. I don't need to change. Well, the world around you is changing. You are the one, grandpa, who resisted that I don't want to have a cell phone. Then you resisted the flip phone. Then you resisted the BlackBerry. And now you're looking at your grandkids and doing a face call on iPhone. You changed. So if you're changing with technology, please change with people as well. Because we're living in one of the most wonderful countries in the world. No one embraces diversity as well as we do. But we cannot be the leader in the global world if we cannot deliver the promise. So it's important for us to understand. And what are the solutions? You're not changing. You're accepting others. No one is asking you to change your ethnicity, your lifestyle, or anything. Just understand, have value. Value for others, what they do. It's a business case. Yes, it's a nice thing to do, but it's a business case. It's going to have a huge impact. And if you decide that I'm not going to change, we're not going to go after this market, you will be at a competitive disadvantage. I work for NYU. Some of you may not know, NYU is the largest private university in the world. Do you know what NYU annual budget is? $4 billion. $4 billion. Do you know why they're so big? Because they have 12,000 international students. They are the largest university in the world of international students. And they look at this as a purely business case. They look at this as an opportunity and seeing things from a different lens. Sometimes we both can be right. Right now, my point of view is a lot of round tables, and I'm right. Your point of view is one man standing on stage, and you're right too. So we have to coexist and understand how people feel about this. And the most important is your next generation, because your next generation is changing, and it's changing rapidly. Their rules of engagements are very, very different. They dictate how we're going to work together. And we all get shots from our kids. We should learn. I remember when my son was applying for college, sitting on a dining table, now he's done with college, and having a conversation. I said, Sean, and Mark knows him. I said, where are you applying? And he has headphones on. And as a father, I said, take the headphone. He take the headphone. Yeah, Dad, what did you ask? I said, where are you applying? He said, I'm good, Dad. And he prepared. I said, what college? Dad, I'm sorry, Dad. What did you ask? I said, what college? I said, Dad, I'm covered. And then third time I asked him a question, he said, Dad, I don't want to be disrespectful, but why didn't you text me? I said, what do you mean, why didn't you text me? You're sitting in front of me. He said, no, Dad, I would get back to you sooner because I'm multitasking, listening to music, but I'll get back to you sooner if you text me. Now, at that time, I was fuming, but today we all do that, don't we? Because this is our next generation. They are deciding the rules of engagement. And some of you may be dealing with the next generation, right? That's your own business. So who cares what I think? I'm a marketer. I always put myself in consumer shoes. So impact of diversity is it gives you a very different perspective, economic growth and reduced costs, so you can save a lot of money. And Marcy probably going to go and scare you later on about it. Foster a creative and innovative workplace. Happy employees make happy customer. Make your place conducive for everyone. Yes, you're closed on Christmas. We understand that and we value that. But if it's a Chinese New Year, at least congratulate them for that. It means a lot to that person. For them, that's Christmas. If it's Rosh Hashanah, appreciate that. For them, it's the same thing as you take it off. Understand people's differences. And it'll help you stay competitive and sustainable. You cannot be at a competitive advantage if you miss this as an opportunity. And diverse consumer through diverse workforce, and it's all about reputation and leadership. Many great institutions have lost so much value when they mishandle the situation. Unconscious biases, right? How do we build the unconscious biases? We have them, right? It's our assumption about social identity. We are very judgmental people. I call them a Japanese kid. That kid has never gone to Japan, doesn't speak a word of Japanese. Yes, parents came from Japan. But that doesn't mean anything. Because people feel the difference. Your socialization can have an impact. The moment you let people feel, we are so far behind. We think we are ahead. But think about it. We have to wait till year 2028 in this country to pay same to a woman as we do to a man for the same job. We still have to wait another 8-9 years. Think about that. How do women feel about this statement in this room? Not great. Everywhere you go today, in a business setup, women are either majority or about the same. And this room is no different. Yet we completely ignored them as an audience. This is very important. We have biases. She can't do that. She's not good for that job. I was hearing a video that there are more CEOs for Fortune company named John than women CEOs. I don't know how does this happen. More John CEOs than more women CEOs. I asked a question in my class, leadership class. I said, honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know who are better leaders, men and women. You'd be surprised. Majority of people raised and said, men are better leader. And some of them included women. We need a complete mindset change. We really do. Because these are our biases, and they are so 1960s and 70s. This is 2020. And it's okay to have unconscious biases, and some of them are unconscious, but as long as we understand they're not always equal to stated values. Sometimes you say things that you don't mean, like I didn't mean Japanese kids. I was not trying to be racist or ethnically challenging. But that's how I learned. And one time, I was with my young daughter, and I said, hey, Alina, I'm going to go there, and why don't you come to that store? And she said, which store, Dad? I said, and she was probably 7 years old, 9 years old. I said, that store over there. She said, oh, over there, where that black woman. And I said, this is not good, a 7-year-old thinking about it. I said, which black woman? She said, next to the green woman. She was referring to the clothes that woman was wearing. She was not diverse, enough diverse to be not looking at things the way I look at things. She don't look at people. They are colorless. They are colorblind children, your next generation. Because in their school, everyone is different. We went to school, boys did boys things, girls did girl things. Now on your soccer team, boys and girls play together. It's going to change. We have to understand, drop your biases. They're not going to be very helpful to you. So what should be the driver for change if I have not made a business case? To develop a unique competitive advantage through diversity, right? It's a business case. If you want to stay in business, change is critical. 1898, a company started making products. And by the turn of the century, in 1900, they had 6,000 employees. In 1987, this company had 120,000 employees. And it was a global iconic brand. In 1985. Today, the same company is left with 5,500 employees. I'm talking about Kodak. What happened to Kodak? If somebody went to Kodak in 1990s and say, hey, you would be getting out of business. They say, what do you mean, people won't take pictures? Yeah, they would. They just won't use your films. Because the company did not change. And those who don't change, they perish. Whatever our identities are, no one is changing it. But we need to look at people and understand to drive business growth and become an industry leader. or whatever your objective is, you need change. McKinsey did a survey about a few years ago, and they talked about that if you look at this, that companies that have a gender diversity within the organization they outperform other companies 15%. And if your company is ethnically diverse, you outperform 35%. Take it to your school, take it to your institution, take it to your team, and look at it. Today I told you that every third person in this country is a diverse ethnic background. 51% of the population are women. Look at your workplace. Do you reflect? Do you mirror the market? And if all of you, people around you, are older white male, and by the way, older white male is a part of diversity, but they all look the same, then you're missing out a huge opportunity, because everyone brings a different perspective to the game. I'm going to finish my talk with this video, and this is a very interesting video, but I want you to pay attention and watch this video. It's an old video, but it's still very relevant. Can we have the sound, please? Anybody from AV? Should I play it now? Okay. So while we are talking about this, I'm going to cover the last slide, and then I'll come back to it. So before I go into the breakout, what are some of the key takeaways here? First, the world around is changing rapidly. And whether we like it or not, we need to see this as an opportunity and how we can really be a part of this. Second, it's all about competition, right? What is your competitive strategy? If your competitive strategy does not include millennials, women, and multicultural people, you're leaving 76% of the US population. And any strategy without the 76% population is a bad strategy. And it's not that you say, hey, we don't accept women or multicultural. What is your specific strategy to attract more women, more people of color, and more younger generation? So that's important. And then, as business managers, business leaders, we want to leave this place better than we found it. So it's important for us to understand that. Any luck so far?
I'm going to have to close out of the presentation real quick to check.
You have to?
I just have to X out of the presentation real quick to check.
All right, that's fine. Maybe we can start a conversation, and then as soon as, this is one of my favorite video, and I would love to share that with you. Should work now? Okay, let's have a full screen. Perfect.
In Rochester, New York, has a new, most unlikely hero, a special ed student by the name of Jason McElwain. Here we go. Jason is the basketball team manager. For the past couple of years, he's been assisting Coach Jim Johnson, helping with whatever the team needs. Enthusiastic, to say the least. Despite being born with autism, Jason's father says his son has never had a problem expressing himself in basketball games.
I was always concerned that he might get a technical and they lose the game because he, started yelling
So I think we make an assumption about people that this person cannot do this, and never make assumptions about anyone. Everyone has something unique. I don't know if I should fire the coach because they was such a valuable player in your team, and you never gave him the opportunity, because when he was cleaning up and doing, all he was doing is throwing the basket. And he became a phenomenal player. But the coach must have always looked at that he can't play. And if he had gotten an opportunity, he would have been a very, very important part of the team. So at times we really use a different lens and don't value what people have. So it's important for us to value them for who they are and what they can do. Thank you.
So Tariq, thank you very much. You gave us a lot of information and a lot to think about. We have about 15 minutes left. So what I thought we would do is do a couple questions kind of based on the presentation and maybe try to gear it a little bit towards education and athletics. So I'm going to focus on three things. One is the business case that you talked about. Obviously, in corporate settings, we've learned a lot about women being in the C-suite, and that's been a very positive contribution to those businesses, and obviously, looking towards selling to your clients and giving the clients, who are diverse, a reason for buying that product or signing with that client or with that business. So can you take that approach and talk about, from an education standpoint or athletic standpoint, the business case for diversity and what universities should be thinking about, and athletic departments as well?
Well, it's very important, and there is a research that is not out yet, so I cannot give you the whole details, by a very large institution of 20,000 students. And in this research, what's very interesting, I was looking at some of the part, they asked them to self-identify their gender. How many genders do you think they came up with? 17 different genders. So whether we like it or not, Noreen, these are the students. So today we say, hey, he's a male, she's a female, and then this is where it ends. But now your students, and they're all 18 plus, so they're in college, they are self-identifying themselves with unique genders that you have never even heard of. And it's important not only to say, hey, this is really wow thing, you will be coaching them. If you do not understand who they are, how can you coach someone? If you do not understand their needs and requirements, how can you prepare right restrooms for them? Mm-hmm. How can you create a right environment for them? How can you not understand? I think train the trainer, coach the coaches is a very important thing. We all should look at it, because what's going to happen is that you're great at your game, you're great at motivation, but in order to motivate someone, you need to understand what are they motivated by. And if you don't get that right, we're missing the opportunity.
So following up on that, how do you think it's best, what steps should universities and athletic departments be taking in that education process? And what types of behaviors, especially, have you seen around education or athletics that maybe you don't even understand that those are issues that are affecting your inclusive excellence?
I think there may be a three-step process. Number one, acknowledge the challenge. Put all the stakeholders and put them through training. That, how your world is changing, and let's look at whoever I am doesn't really matter, who I'm dealing with, and let's look at our 16 and 17, 18 years old, So how many of you remember 9/11? All of you remember. The kids who are going to college today, they were not born at that time. So if you tell them 9/11, it's like Pearl Harbor for them. Okay, it happened, really sad thing. So try to understand their mindset. So number one is train the trainer, train the coaches, and talk to them about this, and they're all smart people, they understand. Second, how do you really create a welcoming environment who your target audience is? If this is who you are recruiting to or working with, then make sure when they walk in, they feel, wow, this is really great. So they don't, when they come to your place and they say, hey, what is the restroom? Don't make sure that there is not only restroom saying man and woman. There should be a gender-neutral restroom available. So these are small things, and you can get more tactical, building that kind of environment. And third is really including them in your decision-making process. Asking them, because they're very vocal. This is a generation that really will not conform to what you have. They're creating their own system because they are motivated not by the old business leader. They're motivated by Mark Zuckerberg of the world who dropped out of college and created Facebook. So it's very important that we understand and see their needs and meet those needs.
That's great, thank you. So in our conversation prior to the panel, we talked a little bit about what coaches particularly can think about and how they deal with their teams that are diverse, that come from different cultures, different geography. Can you talk a little bit about maybe things like microaggressions, any other kind of day-to-day activities or actions that our coaches and our administrators should be thinking about?
Yeah, so microaggression is unintentionally, unwillingly, unknowingly, or sometimes knowingly, you're saying small things and that can really make an impact. So let me ask you, Noreen, if you have to judge me as my ethnicity, what would you call me? Very fair. Asian.
Asian.
Right? My children, if you look at them, they look very much like me, and you can call them Asian American, right? If I'm black, you will call me African American, right? How would you feel if I call you European American? Am I wrong in calling you European American? Probably not, right? So we have created these terms.
I was going to say Irish, no.
Yeah, right. But you know, African American means, right? What do you call a white South African? African American, right? So we really need to understand these small terms can make a huge difference. And I think it's important for our coaches, right? So when I was learning, to how to play things, my coach would say, "Don't cry like a girl." And that was a bad thing. There's a commercial by Always Run Like a Girl. If you get a chance, take a look at it.
That's great.
That's a negative connotation, right? Don't cry like a girl. It means you're not powerful. I have boys, I have 2 boys and girl. My strength comes from my daughter, not my son. So we need to understand that, the sentences the coaches use or, the managers, the trainers, it's important to understand how people feel about things. So it's very, very critical.
Great. So before I move on to another question I might have, I thought I would open it up to the audience to see if anyone has a question for Tariq on any of the presentation that he provided earlier or kind of a continuation of the discussion we're having right now in terms of how do you utilize the information he just provided to us about the diversity and the changing face of America and how we can do our jobs day to day. So opening to any questions at all out in the audience. Mark.
Tariq, you talked about getting out of your comfort zone. Can you give some examples of how individuals can get out of the comfort zone?
Yeah. So I am a very bad date when it comes to food, right? I'm very limited in my food options. My children challenge me and get me to do things that I don't like, but they are my children. And there are a lot of activities, my daughter took me to Iceland, and she said, "Dad, I have something planned for you." I don't like water much, and she had me doing the snorkeling in the Titanic plates, which is like 200 feet deep in cold water. And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it." She said, "Okay, I'm going to do it alone." I got in the water. I did it. It was the most terrifying experience for me, but I got out my comfort zone. Why? Because I was emotionally connected. Now think about a business. A lot of things that we do in business. So if you find out that, hey, 320,000 students are coming from China, and they can be a great opportunity, or if you are a team coach and you find out one of the top players, let's say if you were at NEC and Jeremy Lin, when you and I were at that time, you really became Chinese at that time, and you started loving everything about Jeremy Lin, right? Because it was a business case. He was a star player you needed, and all of a sudden you say, "Hey, let's go to Chinatown, let's have Linsanity." Right now, NBA's biggest audience is coming from China. My friend who works at ESPN is spending so much time because it's a business case. They say, well, that's where the revenue is coming from. So you get out of your comfort zone. And that's how you need to. Now, getting out of comfort zone doesn't mean that you really convert yourself, but you play according to the rules. No one likes getting up early in the morning. Most people don't, right? But we have to, because that's an opportunity that we have to go to work. So this is not optional anymore. I think it's a requirement if we understand the importance of it.
Great. Any other questions?
I got a 5-minute.
Got one right here.
You talked about the changing face of this generation of technology and how they like to communicate. On the other side of that, as educators, we know that they need to be better at these more regular forms of communication. So where do you think the balance is in helping them to be able to kind of bridge the gap and also accommodating where they are at?
I think that's a great question. So I'll give you an example of my class. The other day, I have 25 students, and someone was making a presentation. I said, hey, my pen is not working. Does anyone have a pen? And then everybody started looking, and no one in the class had a pen, right? Now, as a teacher, I was how do you guys take notes? And they said, well, we use these devices. We take pictures of whatever you write on the board, right? Now, think about it, right? In 5 years from now, most of us would not carry a pen. I am predicting the class of 2050 will not be able to write their own name because handwriting will go away. That will be a skill of the past, right? Now, how do we create the balance? It doesn't have to happen next day, but you need to really create. Now, when I coach people, I talk about soft skill. The younger generation, especially very young people, they don't know how to shake hands because they interact with the screen mostly, and when they go for a job interview, that's the first time some of them seeing a live person talking to them for a business opportunity. So when you give them a hand, sometimes they don't know what to do, and they just touch the finger or they give you a fist, right? So I tell them the people who are hiring you, it's not about that all we have to do is all of us have to change. You have to change too. At my workplace, I tell them the importance of shoe shine. And, these young kids say, what do you mean shoe shine? What is a shoe shine thing? For someone of my age, it's very important to go to, Penn Station and get a shoe shine, right? So you have to create that mediation. Don't be unreasonable, but at the same time, our job is to prepare them for tomorrow. So tomorrow, all the old people will not die. These people are not running the world. They will have to deal with us for so many more years, and now we're living longer. Next would be the artificial intelligence. And these people who are younger millennials, they'll be teaching their kids how to interact with robots. So they'll have to do that. So I think we have to find a good moderation somewhere, but not try to, totally pull the plug. We have to change some, and they have to change some.
Okay, we have time for one more question. All right, so any closing thoughts that you have? I know we had some other questions about the business case and universities and bridging that gap, so that was the question that was asked. Anything to leave them with in the last minute or two?
I think our education system is going to be challenged very soon because our younger people are looking at many college dropouts and looking at how successful they are. I was speaking at Harvard 3 years ago, and it was 300 people in the room. I say, how many of you want to become an entrepreneur? And almost 80% of the room raised their hands, right? Which is great. But the challenge is entrepreneurship doesn't mean that you're a leader. These people have become successful running a company, but they are lacking many soft skills. Our colleges and universities have to understand that we have to rule them on their preferred rules of engagement. So when they come to you, right now they still believe in the education system, but if we don't deliver to them, they will stop believing in the system. They're walking out of college, and these big names of the companies don't matter to them. They are very happy to work for a garage startup than having an American Express as a big name when I graduated, right? So try to understand that how do we teach them, how do we prepare them? And same for sports coaches, if you look at it. These people are walking with things where you can give them whole lecture. They may have YouTubed it a night before how to tackle that. So if you're trying to show them something, yes, you can draw it on the paper, but if you probably send them a viral video, they may look at short video more often than really your 20-page tactical plan that you send them via email or even hand them to a paper, because these people are pretty paperless now.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here with us today.